a lot of it for me is also learning the human brain. We're wired to look for the negative. That's all survival. And so you have to train yourself to really find, you know, the good, what you're grateful for. You have to very much make that a part of your everyday life. And I know it's not easy. Like I'm not going to sit here and say everything's just rainbows and butterflies. And once you start talking nicer to yourself, everything's perfect, because it is work that you have to do. But I think for me, realizing that it's all just part of your brain chemistry on why certain things come in. And then, like you said, if you can stop yourself and just realizing what's happening, even though maybe there is some like validity to this negative thought, right? But just realizing and being present that it's happening has been helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
And are you on a daily basis aware of this? Or how good are you? How good are you getting at applying the gap, or what you're really saying? Like when people say mindfulness, all they're talking about is the gap. All they're talking about is that quick contemplation of, wait a second, is this really me talking? Like on a daily basis, do you feel like you're filtering consciously?
I'm getting better.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Progress.
Yeah.
And does that progress make happiness? Does that create happiness? Do you feel fulfilled with progressing in that way?
I don't know if it's happiness, but it's content.
Okay. Yeah.
There's another, I don't know if you heard Mel Robbins. She has what's called the let them theory. And basically, let's say at work you don't get picked to, I don't know, take on this really big project. And it's just, when things like that happen, just let them. And you're almost just letting them pass you by. Similar to what you were talking about, here's a thought. I'm not going to accept that thought, but it's there. And that has also been helpful to stop myself and not let the hysteria, I guess you could say, happen when you have these thoughts or things that happen in your life.
I struggle with this too, and we're all on this journey together. And so the first real coach that I ever hired was about 8 months ago, 12 months ago maybe, and his name is Derek Grant, DG. Known him for a long time, and really sat back and looked at what he was doing, and finally jumped in. And I said, "Hey, I think you could really help me here." And one of the things that he had me do right away was go back to my parents and write a letter to my mom, write a letter to my dad, write a letter to myself from the perspective of who I am now to who I was then. And the reason he had me do that is because of what Mel Robbins talks about. What we're all really talking about here is at the punchline is controlling the outcome, or trying to control the outcome is always going to produce frustration, fear, shame, doubt, guilt, lower energy emotion. And part of writing to yourself, in my case it was my parents, in your case it might be, we didn't get to the specific person that I know is in your head who picked on you that you don't have to say out loud, but it's that person. That's the person you have to write and forgive if anxiety ever dissipates and goes all the way away, because it's so rooted on layers and layers and layers of that happening. And then other little instances, but if the other instances were big enough, you would have talked about those. You didn't. You talked about this one.
Yeah.
And so writing back for me was that way to ultimately let go of control of the outcome. And I have to tell you, my life has gotten so much more content, so much more peace, so much more happiness as a byproduct. Not that I always expect to be happy, but there's a lot more happiness because I don't have any fear or frustration. No external circumstance has the power to make me frustrated anymore or make me fearful. This is what Mel Robbins is saying, is because the outcome doesn't matter.
Right. You got that power back.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that you're working on that. And so you're going to keep progressing in that. And so I guess my next question is what's the other side of it? What are you running toward? Do you have a specific picture or vision? You know, we all need a blueprint. We all need something that in which we can say, hey, I'm doing good in alignment with where I said I was going to be, right? Or I'm not.
Yeah. So like, the journey I'm on right now, it's so hard to measure, right? Because it's not having a better outlook on life and better self-worth, confidence. You can't really measure that. So I would say my future goal is just continue to pour into myself to be the best version of me, whatever that looks like, right? And knowing that, you know, I may not have, you know, I'm not perfect, and being okay with that. I know that's a very vague answer, but it's very hard to put kind of this journey on I'm here, I've figured it all out, because I feel like it's going to be a constant life exploration.
Yeah. It will be. But even without in exploration, you still have to have a direction. Humans will actually walk naturally in a circle if you let them. If you just let somebody loose in the woods, they're going to think they're navigating their way away from the woods, but they're just going to end up right back where they started. And so, although there doesn't need to be a definition per se, I think it's useful, at least in my observation, to have a blueprint of how things might look if I was to become the person who I'm destined to be through my self-actualization. What in this physical plane of the world, what manifests, and it can be whatever you want, but I know when it's the right answer, and you'll know when it's the right answer because it will be everything in your life that you love. It'll be spending a day with who you love, where you love spending it, how you love spending it. And we call this the North Star when I teach people. And it's just a directional conversation. Are we going north? Are we going south? Are we going east? Are we going west? So that you don't end up walking in the human circle on a self-actualization journey that's not guided by something that use an energy or not necessarily an outcome. It's just an energy that you put forward.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, because I know sometimes the esoteric stuff is hard to, even for even for people that talk about it, it's hard to grasp. In Burn Boot Camp, I say, guys, we're going to 10,000 locations. Do I think we're going to go to 10,000 locations? Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea how to define that or what it looks like. But I do know what to do today if we were going to 10,000 versus if we were going to 500 and we already made it. If we were going to 500, the work's done. We're here.
Yeah.
Right? But if we're going to some vision of the future where it's not unattainable, but it's undefinable, you don't really know how you're going to get there. You just know that that's the direction I'm going in. And I teach people to write out what that day might look like, right? Who would you be with? What would you be wearing? As if you had to live this day over and over and over and over and over and over and over on repeat. Because you're really going to only spend time with the people that you love and doing the things you love if you got to live the same day over and over. So it's not necessarily like where are you going to end up. It's saying what lifestyle gives me the most content possible, gives me the most peace, so that I can give the most energy I can back to others. Does that make sense? It's a little more esoteric than the classic, like, set a goal for 20 years and like put a number on it. What's your net worth?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's a good way to think about it, because I've always, on this journey of, really just finding peace, it's like, how do you measure that, right? Like, there's nothing really tangible that you can put on paper and say, oh, I check that off my list, I did it. But tying it back to the lifestyle on, when I think of what I want, I think that can help me at least kind of set some goals, even though, it is kind of a untangible thing.
Even if it's a direction, because then let's say your kids ask you, what do we stand for as a family? You want to be able to answer that. What are our core values as a family? And I'm sure you guys have these in your head, in your actions, but part of that is the story. How do I want my kids to behave on this random day 20 years from now, where I don't think you could say the word mastered, but I am the most elevated version of myself I could possibly be. I've put work in on my mind, my body, my emotions, my spirit, my relationships. I spend my time wisely. I talk to myself lovingly. I work in an environment in which I can control the energies around me. And because of that, my financial future or my financial situation is one I'm at peace with. And that could mean $100, that could mean $0, it could mean but it's part of the world that we live in today. And I think it could only help you to start putting together what that direction could look like, as a way for when people in the family ask, say, okay, it's that direction. It's toward higher character. It's toward leadership. It's toward loving more people. It's toward, okay, so those are ways to make it tangible, is to reverse engineer it into the core values that you want to have as a family. And then, mine's a story. I have this crazy story. I won't tell the whole thing because this is your time, but it's a crazy story of what if all the intentions that I set forth in my life were to manifest. Great, this is what would happen. But there's no anxiety or worry or fear if it doesn't, because I know that I can control the present moment. And if I can control the present moment, I'm going to get to where I'm going regardless, if the energy is out there and I've got a directional conversation. So
Yeah.